Hey guys, I wanted to record a video about just the mechanics that happen within Valorant. Obviously, we've seen a lot of the characters and abilities at this point, but there's some interactions that I had a lot of questions about on my stream that I did recently. So I just thought I'd answer a couple of them, just sort of get some of the finer points out there so you guys know what's going on. So first thing I wanted to talk about was Wallbangs. It's going to be a very important part of Valorant. So there's three different types of sort of materials that you can shoot through that we notice in Valorant. That was wood, stone, and metal. The penetration that goes through each one is lower depending on the substance. Obviously, wood is the weakest, stone is medium, metal is the hardest to penetrate. And that happens through damage reduction with certain guns. We tested it with the highest penetration guns, one of the LMGs, and we actually sort of got to see how it works. It seemed a little inconsistent, but for the most part, there was about, a 50% damage reduction through metal, and then everything else it just sort of raised from there. From our first impressions, if you were penetrating through wood and also like wooden boxes, there was actually 0 damage reduction. So I don't know if that was just the way our gun worked or the thing, but that's the first test of, penetration that we've really seen from the guns, and it was kind of interesting. So make sure you are shooting. There is actually a little sort of sound cue that you can hear when you shoot through something if you know that it's actually penetrating through the other side. If you go through too much of a distance, it actually won't penetrate through the wall. So you can't just like shoot through any wall that's like super thick. It has to be, within a reasonable. And there's actually a visual sort of bullet hole that you can see in the wall that will let you know that it's penetrating. If it's not going through the wall, it'll just look like a cracked web and there won't be a hole. So you should go if you get a chance to go in and play the game, test it out, see what works for you, see where you can wallbang and whatnot. So, because it's going to be such an important mechanic for the game. So a lot of people ask me how you get ultimate points because it's a little unclear just watching the game. So there are 5 ways to get ultimate points, and each character needs about 6 or 7. So the 5 ways of getting it is by either getting a kill, dying, defusing the bomb, planting the bomb, or getting one of the orbs that is on the ground on both sides of the map. So each one will grant you 1 point. Once you get up to the maximum number of points, then you can use an ultimate. Once the ultimate is used, you can start recollecting points again. There is bunny hopping in this game as well. I suck at bunny hopping, so let's just layer it with that. But I was sort of jumping around testing it, and I've also heard from other people that it does exist in the game. To what extent, I don't think we really know yet, and I think people will start to try and test it and see if you can actually gain more speed, where it's actually useful and all that kind of stuff, because right now it seems to have diminishing returns, so it's good for the first couple of jumps, on natural speed, but after a little bit it seems to slow you down. Something important to note as well with some of the ultimates, mainly Sage and Phoenix, is they actually have sort of cooldowns, also like respawn periods whenever you come out of the ultimate. So for Sage, if you res somebody, there's actually about a 2-second window when they're in the animation of being resed that they can actually be shot by the enemy team. So when you are Sage resurrecting somebody, you need to make sure that you can protect them, otherwise they'll just die again. I did that plenty of times in my games. It feels very stupid when you use all your points just to res somebody who dies again. The same thing actually happens with Phoenix. When you use your Phoenix ult, when you come out of the Phoenix ult, there's actually probably about a 1-second animation of him like popping his collar for whatever reason. But that is actually a killable time. So if you use it too close and people recognize that, if they kill your illusion, they can actually run in at you and kill you before you can actually shoot back. So you need to be careful when you're using this ultimate and not just blindly run in. Something else that's also very important in this game to note when you first start playing is it's a weird situation where they allow you to aim down the sight of the gun, but it's actually not always that useful. So most of the rifles you can aim down the sight, but it actually reduces your fire rate by 50%. So it becomes this balance of how often do you want to aim down the sight, because if you're generally in a mid-range to close-range battle, you don't want to be aiming down the sights. So just make sure you're thinking about that when you first start playing, because that was the mistake I made for the first day or two when I first started playing, is that I was losing a lot of duels just because my fire rate was lower because of aiming down the sights. So just because they give you the ability doesn't mean you should always use it. I would recommend using it for sort of long range one taps, but for the most part, you're going to be wanting to hip fire because the accuracy is also very good. It's not like other games like Call of Duty where if you're not aiming down sights, you're barely going to hit anything. The movement, I would say, is very similar to Counter-Strike. in the fact that you feel very clunky and it doesn't feel like you can move very easily. The, surfing, bunny hopping, all that kind of style exists where, you can strafe in the air, very similar in that way. But it also has the, you can get legged and lose a lot of your speed. You can, jump, you'll make a lot of sound and you will slow down. So a lot of those mechanics still exist. On the exact same point, the gunplay is almost identical to CS. So you want to make sure, you're tapping the same way. The difference is with the spray patterns is the spray patterns aren't actually set in stone like they are in CS. It's actually an RNG factor to it. It actually, you shoot it and it will rise, but then it sort of fades left to right as the more you spray. So you should see on the video here that like it doesn't look 100% random. There is some consistency to it, but it's never going to be perfect, the spray that you do.